All right, let me introduce the show. So, welcome back with Risk Talk. We're back. Just want to introduce this new segment called From Corner to Corner Office. Now, the corner is a metaphor. It doesn't necessarily mean that you were actually on the corner, but we'll have guests that kind of fit the bill or diverse background. But the corner is a metaphor of being stuck mentally and transitioning from that mentality into working towards your full capacity. So I felt the need to have this segment because everybody has a story, right? Everyone can, sit there and tell you their struggles and how did they get there, how did they achieve certain things. But we do have a guest, a close friend of ours, Manolo. Welcome. He's on the money couch.
Yes.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
I know it was
ladies.
far.
Yes, it was
Everybody talk
a
about
little.
the
It was the
distance.
bat cave. I felt like I was going through the bat cave.
I know,
But
I
thanks,
know.
it
But it's
was-
not that bad though.
Nice to spend time with y'all.
Aw.
Yeah.
Here, same here. So, tell us about, yourself, where you from,
Yeah.
you grew up.
Yeah. So I grew up in Queensbridge. I'm from Queensbridge and Queens, so I'm a Queens dude. Um, I'm. I mean, I grew up in that environment in the '80s and the '90s.
Wow.
And yeah, that's kind of where I came of age and got into, like you said, I started in the corner and to like what you said, there's dudes that be on the corner and they be willies, right? Like just cause you on the corner, like you said, it is a mindset. It's like it's like how you identify is, what I'm saying, where you spend your time, with how you where you feel most comfortable, where you relate more. So, it's not like a insult because a lot of times I
Gotcha.
think that's what ends up happening, especially when you talk about, dudes who was in the street probably hustling or whatever. You hear corner, you might think like that's you trying to undermine somebody's
Right.
business capacity or their status in the street, but I don't think that's the case.
Because a lot of people are on the corner.
Yeah,
Think
yeah,
about it.
yeah, and
You
dudes
got-
is doing well
Right.
too.
You got the person who's on the corner doing whatever they're doing, or you got the store runner. That's what they call them, right? You got
Yeah,
the store runner.
different
I
names
don't know, I
depending
just
on
heard
where
about
you
that.
growing up
Right.
at,
So
depending on what hood you from.
Okay. So tell us about, during that time, growing up. I don't know if you were necessarily on the corner. We just use corner as a metaphor, but tell us about that time where,
Yeah,
you were intervening in that corner.
yeah. I mean, so growing up, I was a kid that loved to be outside, right? Like, and it was like, it's not really how it is now with kids to where there's so much, technology and things like that, where you don't have to have that social engagement. But for us growing up, that's how we grew up. We grew up outside. Like me and my crew, like we used to say, we would go on journeys. I mean, we was young kids, walking, right? We started off walking everywhere, right? We would walk, throughout Queens, sometimes going over the 59th Street Bridge, because Queensbridge is right by the 59th Street Bridge. We would be all over Manhattan.
Walked from Queens.
Yeah, I
to-
mean, we was
walked too, a lot.
we
I know,
literally
right? That's the
used
era.
to be out from 11 in the morning to 7, 8 at night. Literally, just all over the place, stealing fruit and from stores, like to nourish ourselves throughout
right.
the time, getting into all types of mischief. So, I was always outside though. I say that to say that, and just observing what was going on around me. And for a lot of, people growing up in the hood, that what you see, depending on what your family dynamic is, but it's more than likely that, your first examples of like success and things like that is dudes that's criminals. You know what I'm saying? Depending on whatever area of crime they might be in, but
Right.
that's your first kind of exposure to success outside of like the TV and things like that. So I was that same type of kid, just seeing what was going on and wanting things and wanting more. I'll say this real quick too. Is something that my mother used to always say, because like we were talking earlier about how I used to go to family gatherings, and we would always take the train to Jamaica, Queens, where my family had bought a house like back in the '60s or something like
Oh
that.
wow.
So that's where we would all gather, right? But when it was time to come home, you know, me, my mother, my siblings, we would be taking the F train back to Queens
Oh wow.
Plaza, and then we would have to walk from Queens Plaza. And I used to be complaining like, why we can't have a car? Why we can't this? Why we can't that? So,
Right.
you know, I'm gonna jump ahead a little bit. Once I got older and I started hustling, I was buying cars and stuff. My mother, she didn't condone what I did, but she knew that she wasn't surprised that like, you know, that how I became like once I ended up, you know, getting involved. So anyway, yeah, you know, my examples was a lot of those street dudes, you know, the different Willies I seen growing up, and yeah,
That's
the path I
interesting because that's the
chose.
first thing young adults see growing up in the
Yeah.
neighborhood. You know.
Yeah, you said you pretty much you came from a structural home.
Yeah, no, I definitely wasn't in like a dysfunctional household, none of that. Yeah, definitely. And I had examples because of like some of my peers, my friends, just, you know, people from my block. So I had, it's interesting. We'll probably get into that further in our conversation. But so no, to answer your question, no, I didn't. I did have like
A
a
structured home.
structured home. Yeah.
So
Not a two-parent home, but a
structured,
structured one. Yeah.
yes. How did you stray away from that?
It was financial. It was like wanting more financially, like just feeling like my mom, you know, she wasn't able to attain the things that I wanted her to have. You know what I'm saying? I didn't get it at the time, like how
When you
hard she
wanted
was
it,
working
right?
to give us that structure that we had, and how difficult it was for her. You know, I wanted more. I wanted, you know, because I had like cousins and, you know, and other relatives that had, you know, that owned homes, and they had like cars and stuff like that. And then, you know, like I said, seeing the Willies out in the street and things like that, you know, I didn't get like why we couldn't have that. I didn't
Right.
understand
At that
kind
time?
of like the socio-economic
Right.
piece of it. You know what I'm saying?
How old were you when you felt that way? Like, I want more. I need more.
No, I was young. I'm
You were
talking about, you
young.
know, I was a young kid when I used to be complaining on the train. I'm
Interesting.
talking about because we would go to my family's house for Christmas. I use Christmas as an example, and everybody would bring their gifts for the family, and that's where we would hand out the gifts to everybody, and everybody would take their gifts home. So we would be on the train with a garbage bag full of gifts, right?
Wow.
And I would be complaining because I'm tired, it's
Right,
late,
right.
you know, I don't want to be on a train.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I was young, definitely
The
young.
reason why I asked that because it's like, you know, at that age, I'm just saying adolescent age, right? So you're going to school, you're following under your mother's rules, and then you come outside, you see the fast life. And back then, a lot of kids were always outside, you know.
That's what we had.
Sitting out in the corner watching the OGs make their money, and they like, oh, that's how they get money. So that was your first, you know, example of, oh, so this is how people make money. So I'm just asking because that's the first thing that attracted to you, and you were like, oh, okay, so that's the way. Because when you're young, you really don't know the way how it works when you get older, like finish school or get, not to say
Right.
school is for everyone.
Yeah, yeah.
But finish school, get a job, how to make money, how to do, you know, there's different avenues to make money. But that was your first experience, that, and you was attracted to that.
Right, right.
So I mean, that happens to a lot of
No,
young
yeah, I think that
boys.
happens to most of us.
Yeah.
You know, I think that happens to most of us that end up, you know, getting involved with crime, you know what I'm
Right.
saying, at a young age is that probably making a comparison to what our socioeconomic circumstances are
Right.
compared to what, you know, the dudes out in the street situation is. You know, we don't understand. I mean, we probably know that they doing something different than our
Right.
family. Possibly we know that it's something, you know, illegal. You know, I don't know to what extent we really grasp that concept, you know what I'm saying? But
Plus, it was fast, so it was just
yeah, or I don't even think we know how fast it is. We just see that it's what we want, right? You
Right.
see, you know, you see the glam, you see the lifestyle, you see girls, you know, it's fun. It look fun.
It's
right?
attractive.
It's attractive. It's attractive. It ain't like, my my cousins and my aunts who were working, I knew they were going to work and stuff like that. I didn't see them popping champagne, having
Right.
like lovely parties around. Like I didn't see that with them, and it was
Right,
cool. Like
right.
it was cool, but it wasn't our life. Like in my, my family dynamic, like within my household, that's not what it was. You know what I'm saying? We ate good. We, what I'm saying? My mom's took care of us. She did what, she had to do to try to give us a little bit of what we wanted, but I wanted more. Like, you know what I'm
Oh,
saying? I
wow.
wanted more. So,
So tell us about that journey, how it started.
yeah.
Not how it started, but like,
Yeah, yeah.
when you were
So
introduced to
like
it.
early, it's crazy because so like I told you, we used to go on these journeys, and then our mischief kind of like evolved more and more. We used to do things like play cops and robbers, right? And we would literally pick up baggies off the floor and put stuff in it to make it look like cracks, and we would have toy
Are you
guns, and
serious?
we
Very
would be doing
creative.
that on the block, right? Then we would, we would find different neighborhoods to go to. So right up the block from my neighborhood was Ravenswood houses, Ravenswood project, and the way they hallways was, it was a little more fun to play in because one, they had two staircases, and you could like the buildings was just different than Queensbridge buildings, which was
Okay.
just kind of like this, straight up
Up
and
and
down
down.
staircase. Yeah. So we would be out there, so we was just getting more and more creative. Then as we got older, we started doing things like, this is kind of crazy. We would get mothballs, right? Listen, this is serious. We would get mothballs, chop them up to make them look like cracks,
Rocks.
put them in bags with ambisol, right? With ambisol, because what crackheads used to do is they would take it out the bag and put it in their mouth, and cocaine would numb their mouth. So we would get some money that way, But that was like when we started like smoking weed. So we would do that to like buy weed, and
Selling that.
oh, we was selling it.
I thought he was.
Yeah, we was
I'm thinking
selling.
in
So
the
the
playing
Amazon
stage,
numbers
like.
Yeah, this was past the playing stage
Yes. Oh,
now.
shit.
So we went from like, yo, you gonna be a crackhead, and I'm gonna be a cop, and I'm gonna be the drug dealer. Like I was always a drug dealer, and then that evolved to like, serving fake drugs
Oh
to
my God. You
to-
guys were probably
You wasn't
getting people
scared?
sick.
huh?
You wasn't scared?
Nah, we wasn't thinking about
Kids,
like being
just doing
scared.
kid shit.
Yeah, it was just about, yo, we trying to get some money to buy something or whatever. You know what I'm saying? And in the mix of that too, we used to like go to stores and steal. You know what I'm saying? Like steal, because being fly, having gear was that was part of everything too. So we would, it would be a combination of things. We did like robberies, going around in different neighborhoods, like beating dudes up, stealing stuff, going to Astoria Pool, stealing. So it was like a combination of those things. But like, what ended up kind of becoming more appealing to me was hustling. So that's when, I really like kind of ventured more towards
Why
like being
was
a
so
hustler.
appealing?
Well, because I like the business side of it. I like
Okay.
like negotiating
Okay.
and I like the business part of it. You know what I'm saying? Like it was a different type of like rush, I guess. Like, a lot of my friends, some of them prefer to be, shooters, and like some people gravitate more towards robbery. Some people gravitate towards being a pimp because for whatever those attributes are. So each
Right.
person has different, attributes and things about a certain, criminal
Right.
activity that they might gravitate towards more, which mine was hustling. Yeah.
Now we're speaking now. with that experience and being gravitated to the hustling stage and what it consist of, you think it benefits you now as an adult?
Not me personally, no.
Okay.
Because of like all of the, ups and downs, like the different consequences that I did. Like I've been to prison a few times.
Okay.
I've done 2 state bids. I got felonies. So like the risk reward, it's not the same for me as it would be for like a younger guy or even adult man with less, without. any, you know what I'm saying, like
Now I know
legal
physically,
issues.
like no, it doesn't. But just the mindset, like, because everyone's a hustler. It could be embedded in some people. Some people don't have the hustler spirit. Some people are not driven. You know, do you feel that you've taken that skill and transitioned that into a different area in your life, like as
Yeah,
of now?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
how you manage business.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
what you're doing now.
Yeah, so I recently started a
Let's
nonprofit.
piggyback a little bit back
All right, all
because I
right.
just want you to just really emphasize on your bids and stuff like that. So you said you did several bids, right? We don't have to elaborate too much on it, but I do want to let the viewers actually know that how many times, how many bids did you actually do before you said to yourself, this was going to be the last one? Or have you ever said that to yourself throughout your bids?
Yeah. So I've been going back and forth, like in and out of the, like dealing with the criminal justice system since a teenager. Like, I went to DFY. I did 18 months in DFY. I did like a bullet on the island, which is a year on Rikers Island. I did some time up north early on. And then I recently, in 2017, I came home from like the longest amount of time I did. So like in total, I did the math before. I think in total I did maybe like a little over 7 years or something like that. In total though, that's with DFY and prison. You know what I'm saying? Actually
Overall.
away, yeah.
Okay.
Actually away. But so all of those times, except for the last, I always knew I was going to come home and hustle again.
Do the same thing.
I just was like re-strategizing. Like y'all saw the movie Blow, like how they when they was
Yes.
in,
Yes,
like
yes.
that's real. Like you know, a lot of dudes be in, and you really like strategize. Like damn, because that's something about prison and just being away is. One, prison could be therapeutic. It gives you time to self-reflect. You think a lot about like everything, all areas of your life, your values, but particularly when it comes to like the drug game or business, you thinking about like, damn, I was doing this, I was doing that, this was my plans, why didn't it work? So you got the time to like kind of reevaluate what you were doing. So that's what I did most of the times that I was away was I would be reevaluating what I did. And that's why, I was able to kind of like always level up a little bit more once I came home because I had that time to sit back and think about
What do you mean by level
what I
up?
did.
And what,
Like,
the next
like,
criminal activity?
yeah. So
Okay.
what I mean is like,
No, I
I
just wanna be
always,
clear, like-
yeah, yeah. No, I always like leveled up. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I went from literally being, a young kid selling fake drugs to, real drugs. And it's a dude from my neighborhood who, I don't know if he told me this too, to me, but I know if people told me that because I come up in conversation sometime, right? That he would say like that I've literally started with like a Hemi, which is like a $10 crack or whatever, you know what I'm saying? And, I was a pretty sophisticated dude at the, you know what I'm saying, at the end of my run or whatever, you know what I'm saying? I was doing pretty well. So that's what I mean. Like every time that I went away, I was able to reevaluate what I did. And that reevaluation led me to do things differently and
But still in the same,
and
the field.
yeah, still in the street. I mean,
Okay.
still in the street, but go from, a certain amount to a bigger amount and, a big amount, a big amount, a big amount. So, yeah, that's what I mean by that. I think, did I lose my train of thought? No. So, so I didn't ever tell myself I'm not until after this last time that I went away. So this last time that I went away, I got I started getting into the law. I was looking into my case a little bit. I became familiar with like legal research and like how to interpret, statutes and things like that. So I was becoming more aware of like the consequences of being in the street. Like like the legal consequences. Like I think a lot of times, and I'm speaking for myself, but I think this is common, is that when we in the street, we only thinking about like adversaries in the street. So like how to evade the police, how to evade stick up kids or
Right.
this or whatever, or losses, or dudes that's, you know, ain't good hustlers, dudes that you might be giving work to. But there's a bigger component, which is actually knowing the law, like the criminal justice system, the law, like how the judge is going to handle you, how the prosecutor is
Right.
going to handle you, right? Like how these people going to handle you, you know, once you in the system. How even if you have a paid lawyer, how that paid lawyer is going to handle you.
Right.
And the way that I think we could protect ourselves more is by learning the law. But that's something that I learned, you know, after the fact.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? This is in hindsight. And just, you know, understanding that it just didn't add up for me anymore. You know what I'm saying? I can't speak for everybody because, you know, the streets is lucrative, right? Like people get great opportunities from being in the street, but there's also great consequence too. So it depends on everybody's, you know, it's your risk reward. It's like, you know what I'm saying? It's what matters to you. So this last time, you know, me knowing the consequences and then just, you know, where I was at with my maturity and my values, things that was important to me, you know, that led me to like not to finally tell myself like, you know, I'm a tap out, like I'm good. So, and that's what I did.
Your last bid, how long did you do?
I did 45 months.
45 months.
So it's like 4 years and some change, a little over 4 years.
Was you on parole when you came out?
Yeah,
5 years.
5 years parole.
Are you off of parole now?
I'm not yet. I'll get off next year.
Wow.
I'll get off next year. Yeah. So.
It's important that you mention the risks and rewards. A lot of people don't look at that, you know, like try to balance that out, or what would be, you know, the benefit if I continue on doing this. There's no benefit in it, you know. So I think that's very important because a lot of times people don't reflect.
Yeah, no.
They don't.
People live in a moment. People live like sometimes everything is so fast
Right.
that you don't take the time to self-reflect and look back. Now there's some, you know, I met plenty of like dudes, even in the street, like that do that have those type of disciplines. What leads to that, you know, that dynamic and that opportunity for them, I think it depends on each person. I think it depends on, you know, what neighborhood you growing up in, how wild it is, how adversarial it is. Like, you know, it depends on a lot of different things. But there are, you know, because there are dudes who be in the street just as hard as I was and make it out unscathed. You know what I'm saying? A lot of levels. But then there's some that don't. You know what I'm saying? There's some that don't. So, yeah.
All right. So that last bid that you did, and you've evaluated your risks and your rewards. Who is Manolo now?
Yeah. So Manolo now, I think, but so that time was really instrumental in like where I'm at now because it got me more into like reading. I got into, so this is important for like what I'm about to get into, but like the dynamics of the case that I was involved in, it was a special narcotics case. And there was a lot of things that I felt was done illegal, to be quite, you know, frank about the whole situation. Like it was, the cops did shit illegally. And it's funny because at that time, this was in 2011, I was reading a book. It was called The New Jim Crow, which is pretty out there now. And it's about the criminal justice system, right? And I was reading it prior to my arrest that led me to the 45 months. And I want to say this because I think it's important. I'll make it really quick. Is where I was living in like a you know, a quiet neighborhood at the time. And some lady came to me out of nowhere, black woman, older black woman. And she was like, you know, she just started talking to me. She pulled out the book, The New Jim Crow. She was like, you know, I think you should read it. She was like, me and my church group are reading it. I would give it to you. Like she was pushing this book on me. And so I was like, all right, let me write it down. I wrote it down and I went and got it and I was reading it, right? And I was reading it. I remember being in my house sometimes reading it. And because also when you're in the street, at least for me, but there's other people too, you think a lot about like jail too. You think about jail, you know what I'm saying? I mean, you're trying to avoid it, but you think about it. So I remember reading the book and thinking like, oh, like, wow, shit, like, oh, if I was in my cell reading this or whatever. Because the book started, and it was very informative about the criminal justice system from beginning to end, like how oppressive it is. It's super informative. Like, it's an ill book. So I had read that. So then when the case happened, the new Jim Crow was just in my head, like everything about what was happening. I was like, felt a lot of resentment towards, the criminal justice system, police, the government, everything. So that's what led me to be so like, so persistent while I was incarcerated with like how I was handling my case and stuff like that. So anyway, I while I was in, I was spending a lot of time like reading, and that also got me into reading about slavery.
Okay.
Big time. Like I got very, very curious about slavery and like the history and Black history and the history of like America, to be honest, in relation to like us as Black people, people of color. So, all of that led me to feel like a sense of responsibility to the neighborhood, to be honest with you. Yeah, everything. I'm talking about everything. Like a lot of people might feel a sense of responsibility to the neighborhood because I'm like, oh, it wasn't like I was thinking like, oh, I sold drugs to my community. I gotta repent for that. It wasn't any of that you hear a lot. It was just me becoming more and more aware as I read more and more and more about slavery and about like the social economic, the intentional, how it is for us. I just started feeling like a sense of responsibility to the neighborhood to like try to contribute in some type of way and do something. And so that's what informs me now. That's what motivates Manolo now. It used to be, It used to be the hustler, the this, the that. But now it's about a sense of responsibility to, like the peeps, to the neighborhood.